Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker.
And me, DB Fastbinder. As we
And
continue our as we continue our experiment with not talking about things that outrage us.
indeed, yes, we're only going to talk about things that are fun or not as doesn't make us as angry, I guess.
Things that are at least interesting.
Indeed, yeah. If you are returning, welcome back. If you're new, what we're as DB had alluded to, what we've been doing recently is we've been watching some different forms of media, some of them at least newish stuff. And then we get into box office talk, and then we talk about something classic or older form of media that we've watched recently.
And both watched the same thing, so that Daniel isn't over here going, "Yep, yep, she certainly does sound like a Barbie girl." Yep.
Yes.
In a
oh,
Barbie
oh,
world, you say.
in a party, yeah. and DB isn't saying, "Oh, really? Okay, demon possession. Okay, yeah, Italy, yeah, Spain, yeah,
I certainly have opinions about that.
yeah."
All right. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen here because
Oh, yeah.
Daniel has bravely volunteered to go first.
Indeed, yes. And if you've seen the description, you probably already know what I'm going to talk about. But here we go.
I don't know that like so few people saw this movie that the image of Russell Crowe there standing in a frock might make some people go,
Eh,
"Eh."
Yeah, what? What's going on here? Yeah. So I watched the Pope's Exorcist, which that came out about 2 months ago.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. It's dropped on Netflix recently. That's where I watched it.
It was a pretty big bomb, despite him going on the Critical Drinkers channel to try to talk this thing up.
Oh yeah. That's which was pretty. That's pretty surprising. I mean, obviously, drinkers moving up in the entertainment world,
Yeah,
but yeah, but yeah. So this movie is so Russell Crowe's character is he plays Father Gabriel O'Morth, and he was a real Catholic priest. Um, I'll go off on a little tangent here. Uh, the reason I know about Father Amorth is because uh, William Friedkin, the late William Friedkin, who directed the Exorcist, made a documentary about the real Father Amorth. It's called "The Devil and Father Amorth," I think is the title.
hmm.
And and the only reason I know about that documentary is because John Tron did a video about it a couple of years ago.
Oh, I think I missed that one.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah. But anyway, get into the movie. Um, so Father Amorth is they establish that he's a bit of a rebel in the Catholic Church. He does things his own way, which kind of rubs his superior. If he was a cop, his superiors would be calling him a loose cannon, and
You're a loose cannon, Father Morth.
yeah, yes, yeah,
Turn in your Bible and your gun.
yes.
We get guns.
We getting what? Yeah. But he is the Pope's chief. He is the chief exorcist. Is his title, and he reports directly to the Pope. And they kind of establish early on that the majority of what people would say are demon possessions. He basically says 98% of them are mental illness
Right.
or somebody going through a episode or just somebody or in the case in the opening scene a teenage boy who's just looking for attention.
Right. Just
uh,
acting out to try and.
right, exactly. Yeah, and so but then we shift to this family, American family. It's a mom and her two kids. So it's Julia as the mom, and then Amy, the teenage daughter, and then their son Henry. And they established that the dad, the husband, died in a car wreck the year before, and Henry, the son, was in the car with the dad when he died, and so as a result, he hasn't spoken in a year.
Mm.
He just sits around and listen. He has his Walkman on, listens to music, listens to heavy metal music, devil music.
Well, now we know why it happened. See, this is what happens when your kids with selective mutism listen to the devil's music. Come on.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So the possession happens because they've inherited an abbey in Spain from or the dad, the husband's family. Now, how the family got in possession of that abbey, and
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
that's interesting.
yeah. I think I mentioned before that there was kind of a glaring plot hole there, little.
Yeah, it's not impossible that would happen. You kind of have to explain the series of like, what did the dad win it in in a raffle? Did the insurance company go bust and say, "Hey, we can't pay you the payout for his life insurance here. Have this abbey we foreclosed on instead."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a little. It takes there's a bit of a leap in logic there.
Well,
Uh,
that's even more shady than those shows where it's like, "Oh, good news, everyone! My uncle died, and we have in order to earn his inheritance, we have to stay at his haunted mansion for the weekend."
right. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, best night's sleep I ever had. But yeah, so the mom Julia, she gets the idea that okay, well, we're gonna remodel they're gonna stay in the abbey and remodel it and then flip it. But then during the construction, a demon gets let out from his prison and possesses the son, and that's where Russell Crowe comes in.
oh, the son wasn't already possessed. Interesting.
No, the son wasn't already possessed, but the trauma that the son went through was what allowed the demon to possess him.
Okay.
And so when Russell Crowe or Father Remorse shows up, and he's working with the local Catholic priest named Thomas, and they're trying to drive the demon out, and of course they spend most of the movie trying to find out the demon's name, because if they know the demon's name, then it makes him less powerful and then easier to drive him out.
Open up a baby name website. All right, Ardvarkson,
Or first, yeah.
Aaron.
Yes. uh, but yeah. But here's the thing: like they do eventually find the demon's name, but does it come up again? Do they need it? Did they ever use it? No.
Oh,
Yeah. And you might appreciate this. The name of the demon is uh like I can't remember how they pronounced it in the movie, but I just assume it's Ozymandias.
okay.
Yeah. Um,
Relevant if you read the Rose book.
Yes. Yeah. There's a bit of a plot to so I say that it has an interesting story. There's an interesting plot twist in there where as Father Amorth and Thomas they go into the catacombs underneath the abbey, and they find out that it was actually I guess what would you call a base or an outpost for the Spanish Inquisition.
Hmm.
And they find out that Ozymandias had possessed the priest who had convinced Queen Isabella of Spain for the need for an inquisition.
Okay.
Yeah. So the demons and the devil were responsible for the Spanish Inquisition.
Convenient for the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's another plot hole. There is that the church covered it up.
I wouldn't say it's a plot hole so much as that's probably how the real politic of the Catholic Church would work if they realized they'd done that. They aren't exactly big on admitting their mistakes.
Right. That's still that's very true. Yeah. So, but
For
then,
reasons that if you watch the Chinatown thing, we'll talk on later.
yes,
Similar
yes,
crime.
so, yes, very
Fill in the
similar. Yeah.
dots.
But yeah, I mean, this movie, like I said, it has an interesting story. Unfortunately, especially in the third act, it kind of devolves into a standard horror movie. They kind of go through a lot of the usual horror movie tropes of yeah, yeah, a lot of that, and then like spider crawling
Mhm.
and you know the demon possession stuff. It's just it's.
Mhm.
But I it could have been and also a lot of fantasy movie tropes in there too, like especially at the end of the movie. Like it's just like because the demon's whole plan is that he wants to possess Father Amorth and then infiltrate the Catholic Church
Again,
again. Yeah. And there's even a scene where when he's possessed and he's in the catacombs and he's basically sitting on a throne with a scepter in his hand like he's Sauron. It's like okay. But I mean, there was a this movie had potential, but it just didn't. It's okay. I'll just leave it at that. It was okay.
okay. So like
Yeah.
so if Russell Crowe hadn't been the lead of it, probably wouldn't have gotten any attention at all.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's actually pretty good in the movie. I mean, I think he kind of embodies Father Morth pretty well. He's being the rebel, doing things his own way, but he's also a bit of a
Mhm.
jokester. He does a lot of kidding and the occasional swearing, which is very unbecoming of a Catholic priest. But yeah.
Well, he's a loose cannon.
That's true. Yes,
Father Harry.
Father Harry. Yeah, yeah.
Eh,
Well, but that's the Pope's Exorcist.
Well, it sounds like it's a kind of a week of just okay because the feminine half of Barbenheimer was my
Yes.
thing of the week. My sister basically she didn't pay for it, but she suggested that my parents and I go see Barbie while it's still in theaters.
Mm,
Um, so we decided, sure, why not? An excuse to meet up on Sunday morning.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, Also, now we know roughly how tall Margot Robbie is. Now that I look at that, assuming
She's
she
taller.
wasn't wearing platforms.
Oh yeah, yeah. I figured she was probably about average or slightly above average.
Yeah, but anyway, okay. Also, this marks back to back Margot Robbie.
Oh yeah, it does.
She is slightly more clothed than she was in Wolf of Wall Street.
I would certainly hope so.
Yeah, because they're showing this to children. All right.
Yeah.
So Daniel, let me tell you about a movie.
Mhm,
It's a Warner Brothers movie about a beloved toy property that is being adapted for the big screen. Uh,
mhm.
it a character is living a life that is artificial and ultimately unfulfilling. They start questioning things, and then they are thrust into a bigger adventure in order to find something. And Will Ferrell is a businessman who shows up at the end and is full of and there's a bit of fourth wall breaking humor.
Uh, are you talking about the Lego Movie?
I am talking about the Lego movie, and the description also fits pretty decently with the Barbie movie.
Ah,
So the difference is that I think that the Lego movie it really didn't break the fourth wall too much until um, the the end, like the end where Will Ferrell showed up as the dad.
yeah, yeah.
But so I have complicated feelings about this movie.
Mm,
So there's like a few different levels you can take this on. Um, I guess yeah. So the basic plot summary, like I said, it is very Lego Movie ish. You know, Margot Robbie is what they call stereotypical Barbie because she lives in Barbie world.
eh,
There's like President Barbie, there's um, Surgeon Barbie, there's Poet Barbie, there's uh,
yes.
like every Barbie has a thing. She's just kind of the default Barbie that you think of when you think of Barbie, which they actually say explicitly at least once.
Ah,
And she lives a seemingly happy life, and every day she has breakfast, and they have lovingly recreated Barbie's dream house.
eh,
Like she gets into the shower and no water comes out, but it's as if she feels like she's being showered. She goes downstairs and big like she has like an oversized toast or waffle that lands on her plate that looks like it's made of plastic. At least I think it. Forget if the waffle looked like it was made of plastic. Now that I think about it,
yeah,
but you get the idea. It's just like a very
yeah.
artificial life, and she goes down to the beach and she's close-ish with I guess you'd call him stereotypical Ken, whose entire thing is being at the beach. Now, I'm not a lifeguard. That's a different Ken. I'm just beach Ken,
Beach bum Ken.
pretty much. And you can tell that Ken is very into her, but
Mm,
she really isn't into him. And so, like, they party, and then every night she has like a girls' night party, and
ah,
it is very clear that this is a pure raw matriarchy, where the Kens are just second class citizens who just kind of exist as accessories to the Barbies.
ah, yes.
Um, and then the next day, you kind of run through the same opening again, but now the water is cold. the The waffle is burnt.
Oh,
Barbie's heels actually touch the ground,
yeah.
and it turns out that something is happening in the real world. So she has to go there, and Ken follows along.
Ah,
And it's basically because somebody is playing with her wrong, well,
ah,
which is starting to make her seem more real, or it's like making reality is intruding upon her.
mm. So it was very existential.
Yes, that's a good word for this movie.
Mm,
So, like, where I would say the Lego Movie, its most logical point of comparison, in my opinion, is like I would say the Lego Movie was a bit existential, but it also had more of like a classic questing type thing.
mm.
Uh, this is much more about feelings and everything.
So one was more toward one's more for boys, one's the other one's more for girls.
I know it's shocking, right? Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Um, so, and because there's like multiple levels to take this on, um, to kind of just press on with it. Um, I, I'm struggling a little bit because I don't want to just do like a blow by blow recap of the movie, so I'm trying to figure out how not to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'll just say the things that you've heard all the commentators who have talked about this movie say. So they
Yeah.
show up there and they realize that the real world is a patriarchy, and Ken is like really into that because it's like eye opening. So he brings that back to Barbie world, and the Kens rise up and just take over, and have all the women just be like stereotypical, empty-headed, they're constantly bringing them brewski beers, as they say it, and then they use their feminine wiles to trick them into not voting to change the Barbie Land Constitution to make it Kenland or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess I give that spoiler because the plot is not really what this movie is about. Um, And also, it's been 6 weeks. Come on.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, note for future, Daniel, mark spoilers because it's hard to talk about this movie without it being spoilery.
All right, we'll do.
Um, I see why everybody from the left to the right has either claimed or denounced this movie
Uh,
because it is very easy to take. So if you take this movie at face value, it is about like you could see somebody who didn't have a lot of sympathy for the plight of the Ken sitting in the friend zone and being unhappy about it,
hmm,
uh, trying to establish what get what he wants, right?
right. Yeah.
You could read into it that this is like what happens when you have an imbalance with masculinity and femininity, because it's like, well, on the one hand, nobody wants to be the little woman, but who wants to be the little man?
Yeah,
You,
exactly.
you kind of need that balance.
Yeah.
You could see it as this is a biting satire of how certain people see the world and just how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
You could you can basically read into it whatever you feel like.
Hmm.
What some people have said, where the Kens were imprisoned until there was equal rights in the real world, I that is not what I saw.
Hmm.
What they said at the end was that they were going to start letting the Kens vote and maybe give them someone on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe give them someone on the Supreme Court when they were ready, which it's like
Hmm.
uh, that's not the message I was hearing some people say about the end of this movie. So it's
Uh,
some people either misinterpreted it or I misinterpreted it. I don't know.
yeah.
Um, I will say that I don't. Um, I've also heard people say this movie is so inept that it accidentally parodies itself. Um, so, as far as its social messages go, and that might be where I'm landing, because
Yeah.
it's the old Poe's law thing, right? It's hard to tell the difference between a satire of a ridiculous position and a sincere example of that ridiculous position.
Right. Yeah.
And make no mistake, the kind of simplified world that they present in Barbie is ridiculous on every level.
Yeah.
But the movie also knows it's ridiculous, which is why I think the intentional satire crowd has any sort of leg to stand on.
Ah. Yeah.
So to get away from like the culture war aspects, like the philosophy of the movie, um, this movie is full of loving references. They had the discontinued character Midge, who was just pregnant. My sister was talking with her about it, and she was like, "Yeah, I had that doll." So it's like where the Lego movie, for those of us who grew up with Legos, it's like, oh, I remember the spaceman, and
Yeah.
I remember this, I remember that. Uh, it was like that for girls who grew up on Barbie.
Hmm.
Um, so it has the nostalgia. I will say though that, man, this is some dog crap Marvel grade humor
Oh.
through most of it. Like very
Uh-huh.
much the oh, that was a thing, and just like so there's like Ken, and then there's Surfer Ken or whatever his name is, who's played by Simu Liu,
Oh.
and
Yeah.
they have like they have an argument with each other, and it's like, you want to have a beach off? Yeah, I'll beat you off right now. And it's just very. I found most of the humor kind of tiresome.
Yeah. Juvenile. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Juvenile or like overly fourth wall breaky or yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So it's just kind of like the humor that we've all gotten so tired of that used to seem fresh and funny.
Yeah. Hmm.
As far as the acting goes, Margot Robbie is perfect casting for Barbie. One of the better jokes in the actually, so that's actually a perfect example of where the humor kind of can like we've talked about bathos before. You have unwelcome humor
Hmm.
interrupting a situation.
Yeah.
At one point in the movie, Barbie is getting kind of real, so or yeah, it's like the real world is intruding on her. So like she's just there without makeup on, and she's
Uh,
talking about, it's like Barbie, I can't do it. I just feel ugly and useless. And the narrator cuts in. Note to the directors: if you wanted this scene to work, you probably shouldn't have cast Margot Robbie.
eh?
Which okay, that's a funny line, but also you're in the middle of a scene that's supposed to be kind of dramatic,
Yeah.
or if not, at least as dramatic as this movie gets.
Yeah. It's the main character is having an existential crisis, and then you throw in and a bit of humor in there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because God forbid that the audience feels something for like 5 minutes straight.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Taika Waititi level
Yeah.
level directing
Yeah.
there.
Um, Also, what you heard is correct. At the end, Barbie does, in fact, go to a gynecologist because she chooses to sacrifice being a Barbie to go be a real woman.
Yeah.
Which is, meanwhile, she does in fact dump Ken, or at least lets him know, hey, we are friends. Like,
Mm,
she realizes that she should have, actually made time for him, or at least been clear about what she wanted from him.
mm.
Ken, okay, Ryan Gosling though as Ken steals this movie. At least in my opinion. Like I say, yeah, Barbie goes through a journey, but it's like I kept thinking she's not really a character though. That's part of what the point of it is, that she's stereotypical Barbie. She doesn't have any interesting traits outside of being the most Barbie of them all.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling as Ken is just he he is a joy. Like most of the best scenes in the movie are him, especially when he decides to adopt patriarchy. Because his version of it's like I talked about the social aspects of it. This is like what happens when somebody who has no strong male role models in their life grows up, watches Andrew Tate, and gets like a PG idea of what he's up to, and tries to enact that.
Oh boy.
Like what a wuss's idea of a strong male looks like.
Yeah.
Which is very toxic. So
Mm,
the movie is ultimately, I feel like, about balance.
yeah. Mm,
So it has a
yeah.
good message there. But do I love it? No.
Mm,
I don't think I'll ever. I don't think I feel the need to ever watch it again, because it's not real. It's not made for me.
right. Yeah. It's made for girls and women. Yeah.
Yep. There's some things here that I would not feel comfortable showing to a child, but that clearly has not stopped people. So,
Yeah. It didn't stop my one of my cousins from taking her daughter to it. So
yep.
yeah.
So, but I would say it's ultimately harmless. Although I got to say, I heard that there was this trend on social media where um, women would, um, if I recall correctly, women would like use this movie as a litmus test, and like if their boyfriends sympathized with Ken at all, then
Oh.
they were out. And I got to
Yeah.
say, if you don't sympathize with Ken and his situation, then you don't deserve to be dated, because it's like, no, like I said, nobody wants to be the little woman. Nobody wants to be the little man. Like to use some terminology that is a bit spicier than I like to be. He is a beta male orbiter who's basically just waiting for Barbie to decide she likes him.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Or like he thinks they're in a relationship, but they really aren't. But
Mm, yeah.
to be fair, nobody in Barbie world really is. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. It's very artificial.
you know, they keep making a point out of that they have no genitals.
Oh. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, again, I would say that this is in the same ballpark as the Lego movie, just well, maybe I'm just biased because I grew up with one and not the other, but the Lego movie is more of a movie.
Yeah. All right.
Uh, but I can see why the movie's been successful.
Yeah.
And my hope is that the way that Hollywood reads the success of this is that they go, oh, well, maybe we should be like making things specifically for women rather than taking historically male properties and trying to convert them.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Hollywood always seems to learn the wrong lesson when it comes to something like this.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I feel like that with all the strikes and everything, strikes, streaming losses, lawsuits against Disney, and everything else, some reality is being injected into things.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Yeah.
Let's hope so. Speaking of reality being injected into things, let's get into the box office report.
Yes.
So I accidentally pulled up one of our movies. So big new release for the weekend was Gran Turismo,
Mm.
based on a true story.
Yeah. Apparently, the guy in the movie he actually learned how to drive race cars from playing Gran Turismo.
Yeah, and I have not heard a single bad thing said about this movie.
I haven't either. I've actually heard it's a really good movie. Poorly marketed from what I've heard too.
Yeah, they had like an extended trailer for this one ahead of the Barbie movie, and
Mhm.
that was the first time I was actually interested in it
Yeah.
because it's not really a video game movie.
No, it's a sports movie. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what it actually kind of makes me think of? What if the King of Kong was less documentary and more less if it was
Mhm.
less documentary and more like fictionalized?
Yeah. Mm.
Oh, fun fact! I actually met the guy that that movie was about. He was it back in a past life when I was a substitute teacher. I taught his class
Oh,
a couple of times. Nice guy,
cool. Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to the guy who cheated to try to get his title back.
Oh yeah, that guy. Ugh. What was his name?
I don't recall, but
I can see his face, but I can't think of his name.
yeah, like beard and yeah.
Long hair. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so we don't have a budget for Gran Turismo, um, but it's doing really well internationally, which it seems like car movies almost do better internationally than in America.
Yeah. Yeah. They seem to. Yeah, they seem to appreciate the sport more, I guess, or especially especially Formula One.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
Turn left, a true story.
Turn left, I think.
That'd be the American equivalent.
Yeah. Well, they already did one of those. It was called Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise.
See, I thought you were going to say it was called Talladega Nights. The
Oh yeah,
Ballad
well
of Ricky Bobby.
that one too.
Um, so as far as the ones that we've been tracking, Barbie still hanging in there. I helped, or my family helped with that drop not dropping as much as it could drop.
Yeah.
Like that, 28% drop on week 6 is nuts.
Yeah.
Um, Blue Beetle was firmly booted out of first place.
Mm,
51% drop doesn't sound too bad until you realize it was starting from a very small opening weekend
yeah.
where it barely fought off Barbie. It barely beached off Barbie.
Oh man.
If you didn't get that, then you didn't watch the Barbie review we just did.
Yes.
Um, Oppenheimer also hanging in there strong.
Hmm.
It's following the oddly, like almost perfectly half of what Barbie's doing any given weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is rated R and it is over
Yep.
3 hours long. So
And it's a documentary and a
yeah.
depressing one.
Yeah.
The true genius of the Barbenheimer meme, when you get down to it, is that they're movies for very different audiences, but they're also movies that that audience is going to get excited about.
Yes. Exactly.
and they aren't stupid superhero movies
Right.
or existing movie franchises. It's just like that breath of fresh air right as everything else was falling apart.
Right. Yeah. Unlike number 5 with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, though that's 15% whole weekend over weekend. That is a tiny drop. So that's,
Yeah.
of course, it's taken a month to make 1 million
Yeah.
domestically for the frickin' Ninja Turtles. So
Yeah.
I,
Well, I think a lot of that is, because it's just I think the animation style might have thrown some people off,
yeah,
particularly if they didn't see Spider-Verse.
right. We're kind of biased against that style to start with,
Yeah.
though it's got legs. If we look at
Yeah.
the chart here, of course, that's right. Never mind. The chart is thrown off because they released this thing on like a Wednesday or
Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So ignore the chart.
Yes. It's $70 million budget. I mean, they didn't spend a lot on it, so
No. So they'll and yeah, they're bound to. I mean, I'm sure it'll work out for them in the end,
yeah.
especially with the toys to do it.
Hmm.
What won't work out in the end is Strays.
Oof.
You're more of a religious film threat viewer than I am.
Hmm.
Have they even mentioned this movie?
They hated it.
Okay.
Well, it actually led to with Chris Gore, found out he's not really a dog person. So, yeah.
It's kind of a shame because the base concept of Will Ferrell doing his overly happy persona as a dog who's abused and doesn't notice he's being abused, like that seems funny. But
Yeah.
what I noticed when I saw the trailer for this ahead of Joyride was that they kept going back to easy drug jokes. Like there were multiple times when the dogs got drunk or ate mushrooms in the woods or something.
Uh,
And it was probably the trailer they show you the best gags in the movie.
mhm.
The best one was like they had the dogs eating these mushrooms and they were all in different animation styles. Like one was like a Disney princess animation style or traditional 2D. One was a sock puppet, and
Oh, gee.
so like that's your best joke. That's like a neat visual gag, but
Yeah.
yeah, bombing hard. That's why I
Yeah.
pulled this up so I could see what the budget was. 46 million. That's if you're gonna lose money, at least might as well lose a little bit of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a heap ton of money like some
And
of
that,
these other movies.
and that is one where you know showing it on Comedy Central or streaming could eventually make it break even for them. So
Yeah.
it's also kind of impressive anymore that you can make a CGI heavy movie like this, where it's like you're having to animate the dog's lips moving the whole time
Right.
for that
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
We're a long ways from the day of Milo and Otis, where everything was like telepathy.
Yeah. Yeah. Homeward Bound. Yeah.
Yep. We got Meg 2 The Trench, which is still doing nothing nationally,
Nothing.
but a lot internationally.
Yeah, man. Of course, as we pointed out before,
China.
most of it's China.
Yep, which means they're getting very little of that back.
Yeah.
Um, got a couple
Co-
of new releases that I don't know
Yeah.
anything about.
I don't know. Yeah, Retribution.
Let's see here.
Oh, Liam Neeson action movie. Okay.
Okay, so I tell. Does he look oddly CGI'd in that picture?
Yeah, he looks really lot of filters and a lot of yeah.
That almost looks like someone built a Liam Neeson in Unreal Engine 4, and he couldn't be arsed to show up for the photo for the cover.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Well, yeah, another old timer still doing action movies.
From what I've understood, the reason he's in so many freaking movies is because it's how he chooses to not deal with the death of his wife by staying busy,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
sad, but he's been doing
Yeah.
it for a long time. So it's
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
So they don't have to be good movies. They just have to pay the bills and keep them occupied.
Right.
If what I
Yeah.
heard is true.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, what's The Hill?
Oh, this is I've it's a baseball movie, or is it baseball? It with yeah, baseball movie with Dennis Quaid.
Okay. Growing up in impoverished and small town Texas, young Ricky Hill shows an extraordinary ability for hitting a baseball despite being burdened by leg braces from a degenerative spinal disease.
Mm.
His stern pastor father discouraged Ricky from playing baseball to protect him from injury and to have him follow in his footsteps and become a preacher. As a young man, Ricky becomes a baseball phenomenon. His desire to participate in a tryout for Major League Scout divides the family and threatens Ricky's dream of playing professional baseball.
Mm. Okay. So it's a very sports drama movie.
From the writer of Rudy
Okay.
and Hoosiers. Okay, so
Okay.
that does feel like a very classic sports movie premise.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that sounds interesting enough. Not sure I'd want to take the time out to watch it personally, but
Yeah.
it sounds like a worthy attempt.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to Me, horror movie, no opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and
Mission
Indiana Jones has
Impossible.
hit digital, so yeah, 230,000.
Yeah.
Man, when I was thinking about this movie, everyone would talk about, oh, this one could hit a billion, including people like your boy Zach. Uh, like the thing, I like your boy Zach a lot.
Hmm.
Um, I respect his opinions on comics and even movies, even though it's often wildly divergent from my own.
Yeah.
But he does not know box office trends.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think this movie was going to hit a billion, although I thought it would do better than what it did. I mean,
Yeah,
I thought maybe 500.
yeah, this is like worst case scenario over here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I keep hearing everybody say, "Oh, like there's some people in the media are like, oh, it only lost like $100 million." No, it lost
Yeah,
like it lost like what 300 or 400 million.
yeah. I assuming that like even if we were very generous to them and they pulled back on the marketing because they knew they had a stinker and only spent like 100 million on this, that's still 400 million, which means they need to make roughly 800 million to earn that back.
Yeah, and yeah, they didn't get anywhere close to that.
No, they are basically halfway to profitability. No, not even necessarily halfway to profitability.
Yeah, yeah, man.
You know, at this point, Bob Iger's got to be going, why did we buy Lucasfilm again?
Well, it was his idea.
Yep. And who is the idiot? Who's the idiot former CEO who approved this deal?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, oops.
Oops. I always get me and the other Bob mixed up.
Yeah.
Um, Meanwhile, okay, that's weird. Mission Impossible actually added some theaters,
Hmm.
even as it's okay. Yeah, it cleared 500 million. So it's like they
Hmm.
did similarly in the States, but internationally it really smoked Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But they also spent too much money on this darn thing, so
Oh yeah.
it's in a similar state as Indiana Jones as far as
Mhm.
profitability goes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is Tom Cruise's ego got the better of him.
Yep, they kept saying yes,
Yeah, yeah,
and also to be fair, COVID era things. It's
yeah, that's true.
ma- made a lot of these movies. As much as it's fun to dunk on them for everything being 200 million, it's like okay, there were some real expenses that were added on back then.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, especially this movie in particular. If you anybody remember out there Tom Cruise going on going on that rant at people about not wearing
Yeah,
masks?
yeah.
Yeah,
What the hell?
but
Little Mermaid and Super Mario Brothers were put back into theaters for like they each added like 1,000 plus theaters last weekend.
wow. Hmm.
mind you, they each made like 600,000 or 400,000 respectively. But that's interesting. That makes me wonder if they were trying to like get like like getting a last squeeze.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
weird.
yeah. That is strange. And of course, Jurassic Park got re-released in theaters
Yeah,
for 30th anniversary.
they also had a 1 day showing of American Graffiti last or on Wednesday apparently,
Hmm.
which I was kind of bummed was only a 1 day thing because I haven't seen that movie since high school.
Yeah, I watched that movie pretty recently. It holds up really well. Yeah,
The movie that convinced Fox to give this George Lucas kid some money to make his Star War whatever.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Make his little sci-fi movie.
Meanwhile, Elemental's in like 235 theaters. You know what? When this thing came out, I was not expecting it to outperform Indiana Jones
No, I wasn't either.
because it had an awful opening weekend. Um, and it's kind of that power that Barbenheimer showed us. If you're just something kind of new and at least slightly fresh and inoffensive in its own way.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, hey, Chinggis is here. Good to see you,
Hey,
man.
Shangus.
Meg 2 is still in top 10. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Well, August is a slow month where movies are sent out to die. We'll
Yes.
see. We'll see how. And Labor Day weekend is where movies are sent out to die.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi, like it did as well as it did because it was a freaking Marvel movie, and Marvel movies still meant something.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and it was kind of at the beginning of Marvel's downward slide.
Right. I mean, you'd had Black Widow, but like, okay, that was a one-off, right? Right.
Right? Yeah,
New
yeah,
character,
yeah.
but yeah. Unfortunately, I think Elemental is going to teach them the wrong lesson. Is that new things are scary? Toy Story 6, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a slow time of year, but there's some neat stuff out there to watch.
Yeah.
And gosh, you know what this is, Daniel?
What
This
is
is
it?
like diversity of options because
Ah,
there's a lot of properties here, but
yeah.
there's like a lot of even things that are adaptations of properties. Gran Turismo is a unique movie. It's not like they tried
Mhm.
to impose a story on the game.
Right. Yeah.
Barbie is unique, even if it wasn't quite my cup of tea.
Yeah. Yeah. Blue Beetles, of course, superhero movie, but yeah,
Yeah, it at least has some unique aspects though.
yeah.
That yeah. Last week I was more upset than I am this week that it's not doing well.
Mm,
Because like, it really didn't do anything too unique.
yeah.
But yeah, that's what happens when you make people sick of something. It's not like Western. That'll be interesting to look up to see what the most successful Western of the last 10 years was. I wonder if it was
Yeah.
that Magnificent.
Oh, the Magnificent Seven remake.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Let's see, 2015,
20, yeah.
162 million.
Wow, that was a pretty star-studded yeah, that was not optimal. Though you see
Yeah,
that difference of 2016, they made 40 million on DVD and Blu-ray. So
yeah, yeah,
the fools,
yeah,
you, you went chasing streaming, and you just had to destroy the disc market.
yeah, and you lost that whole revenue stream.
Yeah. Though interestingly, it seems like Blu-ray has finally hit the point where it's consistently outselling DVD.
Mm,
And it does seem like there's been some new life in that market, which that's actually kind of encouraging for archival and other purposes.
oh yes, yeah, yeah,
Although we watched our thing on streamers, and we watched our uh, classic movie of the week on streaming, like Dirty Dirty Streamers. So
yeah. That's true. Yeah,
I think that, yeah, it's just been. See, this is much more fun to talk about than being outraged that they've ruined
yeah,
a beloved property. It's just like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Now, speaking of things that absolutely do not and should not get a remake,
Yes. Mhm. Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
yep. So I had never seen this movie before, though everybody knows that line at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I've only seen the. This is only the second time I've watched it. First time I watched it was about 15 years ago. Um, and the only time I ever saw any form of it before was when I was in high school, and my middle school or high school, and my dad showed me a scene from the movie completely out of context that freaked me out, and we'll get to that scene in a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah. So let's kind of go into some. Uh, we'll go into some non-spoiler territory here first,
yeah,
because while this is a nearly 50-year-old movie now,
yeah.
uh, but there's almost like this weird wraparound effect where, if a movie came out 10 years ago, like, of course you've seen it. If it's 50 years old, there's a lot of people like us who weren't born then.
Right, yeah.
So
And yeah, there's some people out there who haven't seen many of the classics, so
guilty of that in many cases.
mm, that's all right.
So rough overview. Chinatown is the story. It's a very noir story uh, that was made in 1974, I want to say,
Yes, yeah.
about a detective named, is it Giddies?
Giddies, yeah, Jake
Yep,
Giddies.
yep. Jake Giddies, who is a private eye in 30s Los Angeles, or 20,
Mm.
possibly 20. They gotta be
30.
30s.
It was
Yeah.
30s, yeah.
And he ends up, he's just a guy who, he has people who follow people around and catch him, with their mistresses or whatnot.
Yes, yeah, which is, I would say probably about 98, 99% of private investigation is just catching cheating spouses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which, these days business is good.
Yeah.
Probably much easier too because of the internet.
Yeah, yeah, there's that.
Um, and he stumbles upon a deeper conspiracy than he normally gets
Mhm.
into, and this movie is about the unfolding of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to deal with water, believe it or not, of all things, cuz back in Los Angeles in the 1930s, of course, very different city than it is today.
Yes.
Yeah, and for those of you who probably aren't aware of this, if you've never been to LA or you're not from LA is a desert.
Hmm.
And so the big thing that they had back in the 1930s was getting water to LA, and it's like, and they even
Still a
say it
struggle to this day.
right. Yeah, it's still struggle. Yeah. um, and so the big question is, well, how do you get water to LA, or do you bring LA to the water?
Hmm.
And so that's basically where it goes. And LA, or in Chenga says, it's hot as yes here in LA. Yeah, I've been
I
hearing
can
that too.
imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like he gets into this deeper conspiracy. Um, it's got a lot of the tropes. There's the dangerous woman.
Mhm.
There's like,
uh, yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you got like the shady industrialist.
Right.
There's corruption all over the place.
Yeah. 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 Like you were saying, very much a noir story. Something you'd see in yeah from the 40s. Yeah.
Yep. And to kind of close out the non-spoiler thoughts, I actually really enjoyed myself. This is like what, a
Yeah.
2-hour movie?
A little over 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, I only really had to take a break at one point because of nature calling.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's a very quiet movie.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, you don't get very many movies. Yeah, of course you don't get many movies like this anymore. It's a very it's a great I think it's a great crime drama, and
Mhm.
it's certainly enjoyable to watch. Good, it's got a good story, and it's like you follow along with the mystery. You follow Jake Gittes along the as he uncovers the mystery. You're uncovering it with him.
Right. It drip feeds you the information, and every time, yeah, a good mystery story, you feel smarter than you actually are, even if you didn't actually figure it out yourself.
Yeah,
Because it's like, oh, you get that little piece of the puzzle. It's like, oh, that's what's happening. That's what's
yeah,
happening. That's what's happening.
yeah, yeah.
So, would we recommend? Yes.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Have a tolerance for blood, slow pace, bit of surprising nudity at one point,
Yes.
and actually a bunch of racist jokes. Honestly,
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Yeah. Well, it was the 1930s and made in the
yep,
1970s, so
yep. But yeah, okay. So thus ends the unspoilered version of this. If
yeah.
you are interested in this movie and continue to watch this, and you feel like we have ruined it for you, that is on your head.
Yes.
So I think it's funny that I've seen two Jack Nicholson movies this year, and in both of them he ends up disfigured. The other one being his turn as the Joker in Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the scene that I was mentioning that my father showed to me out of context um is where as he's so okay, well, let's get into a little more of the plot. Um so the movie starts off where Geddes has a woman show up in his office, um and she says, she suspects her husband is cheating on him, and she says her husband is this big engineer with the Department of Water.
Right.
And so he's like, okay. So he goes and he's following him around, and he's not really, he as he's following the guy around, the guy's just looking at water wells. He's looking at water drains and stuff. He's not really the guy is obsessed with water. Yeah.
Hanging out by the beach. Uh, we were talking earlier about how technology makes being a private eye easier than it used to be. Um,
Yeah.
he has a bunch of cheap watches, and he keeps and the way he tracks when somebody leaves is he'll get the watch going, and
Yeah.
he'll put it under the wheel so that it gets broken and shattered when it gets driven over, so he knows the time that he departs. and,
Yeah.
and he's like, Jesus, he was out there all night.
Yeah. And hey, Ninja, good to see you.
Yep. Well, he
Yeah, yeah, no
can't
problem, man. Yeah. Um, yeah. So then yeah. And then of course also with the photography, they're developing the film right there in the film development, which I've actually did that in high school. That's a interesting process, um, yeah. So then he continues to follow the guy around, and then he sees her with a young woman
Mm-hmm.
in an apartment, and then it ends up getting out, and it gets in the papers, and it's this huge scandal, and of course, uh, Jake hears a rather racist joke at the barber shop. He's retelling to his colleagues, and
Yeah.
of course his colleagues are just like, shut up," because uh, yeah, because the real wife of the Department of Waterworks guy, who's played by Faye Dunaway, is there, and she's
Yeah.
hearing the whole thing.
Yeah. Like, can the locker room talk, man?
Yeah, yeah.
I think Geddes is an interesting character because
Hmm.
he is a former cop who left the force because he was tired of the corruption.
Yeah,
Is the implication I got? Like
yeah,
he cares too much.
yeah, yeah. That's what I got too, and of course the movie's called Chinatown because that was his beat when he was a cop. He worked Chinatown.
Yep.
Yeah,
And so he's simultaneously a decent person, but also an unsavory prick.
yeah, which which is it makes for an interesting combination with a character.
Yeah,
Um,
he's rough and tumble, but he also does try.
right. Yeah. And so one night when he's and I'm trying to remember did the and so then he then the guy ends up the husband that he's tailing ends up dead.
Right. Um, and so yeah, he finds out that the the he was hired by somebody impersonating the wife, and
Right.
then he turns up dead.
Right. Yeah, and so he's trying to figure out what's going on, and he shows up at this one of the water sites, and this is the well
Right.
to go back to
We have key detail: the husband drowned. Um,
right, yeah,
it, and it looked like he drowned in one of the reservoirs,
mhm,
but they reveal later on that he died with salt water in his lungs.
right, yeah, yes, and then they find out where the salt water is. Um, but yeah, so he's at one of the reservoirs, and this is the out of context scene that I was referring to. That the scene that my father showed me out of context. He gets so Jake runs afoul of another private investigator named Claude,
Yep, who's being
and
hired as muscle by the people behind this conspiracy.
right, and of course Claude's got a friend, and the friend, by the way, was played by Roman Polanski, who was also the director of the movie.
Oh, I didn't read it. I didn't know that was Roman. Okay.
Yeah, that was Roman. I don't know if I could say the line that he says in the "Hey Claude, where did you get the?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah.
Eh,
So the guy sticks a knife tip up his nose.
yeah. So Polanski sticks a knife up Jack Nicholson's nose, and then he says, "It's like you know what happens to the nosy kitty cats? He said they lose their noses." Frick.
Yeah, and I was thinking, man, I wonder if they used like a gimmick knife there because you could hurt yourself like that, and, and then just as I'm thinking that,
Yeah.
so for the rest of the movie, he's having to walk around with like a big bandage on his nose. He's got horrible stitches, and
Oh yeah. And he said, "I like my nose. I like breathing through it." Yeah.
yeah. So uh, and this and I don't think we necessarily do. We necessarily want to like do like a complete blow by blow or
Uh,
hit some high points or
do we want to mention what they did? She's my daughter, my sister, my daughter, my sister.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's a famous scene. Uh,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
so so things are darker than you even think at first.
Yeah. So the whole thing with Faye Dunaway's character is she's her father is the guy who started the water department, who was business partners with her late husband, and her father is played by John Huston.
Hmm, okay, that
Um,
looks familiar.
yeah, he actor director, and Angelica Houston.
Not familiar with
Uh,
her, but
okay, she was in oh god, one of the witch movies. I can't remember.
hmm,
Um, but yeah, that's her father daughter there.
okay,
Um, and her his son is also an actor. I can't remember his name, but anyway, he also directed. Did he direct? I can't remember what he. I can't remember if he directed Ben Hur or not, or that might have been somebody else. No, that was somebody else. But anyway, so uh, he's of course as corrupt as he gets, and of course the young lady that they thought the husband was having an affair with was actually um, the the daughter and sister of Faye Dunaway's character.
yeah, her dad was awful.
Yes, yeah, and so that's basically So then when uh, Jake finds out about that, he's like, "Okay, you need to get out of town. Just leave, get out."
Right,
Yeah,
because so right, and So there's like these two parallel tracks where
Mhm.
um, y- you've got uncovering what's going on with her, and like, she's a major character who helps him out a lot
Yeah.
while he's going through this mystery.
Right.
And what turns out to be going on is, first off, the dead husband was just too pure for this world.
Yeah. He was too nice a guy, and
He
he,
wanted the water to belong to everybody.
yes, and John Huston didn't like that, and drowned him in the little pond out there in his backyard.
Yeah, one of the that was probably one of the best setups in the movie, where early on you have the gardener out there who's Chinese, and he goes, "Ah, bad for glass,"
Yeah.
and he doesn't really explain what is bad for the grass.
Yeah.
Although it does give it does give Jake an opportunity to be racist again by repeating it. Yes, bad for glass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then later on, you find out that because the husband was so obsessed with tide pools, he had filled a saltwater pond in the back of his yard, and that's what was bad for the grass.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was drowned in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so so you had the whole thing, yeah, like you're saying, he had uh his murder, which was purely for profit, for purely for money. And then of course Faye Dunaway is trying to keep her daughter away from her father.
Yep.
And needless to say, the if you're looking for a movie with a happy ending, you're not going to get that with this movie.
No. Because the classic, it, forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown, is she's trying to drive away after
Mhm.
shooting her father with a
Yeah.
pretty light caliber bullet, considering that
Yeah.
he just kind of shrugged it off.
Yeah, it looked like a 22. Yeah.
Yep. Gotta get a higher magnet if you're gonna for home defense. Somebody
Yeah.
of any sort of stoutness can not shrug it off, but
Yeah,
uh,
not gonna,
yeah, I heard a story where I think it was Ronald Reagan got shot with got hit with one of those at some point. Not like was he in World War II or
he wasn't an active he was in the military, but he didn't go off to
okay.
war.
Yeah,
Um
I want
was
to.
it with Hinckley?
Think this was a different event because like the Hinckley thing
Okay.
put him down for
Right.
a bit.
Yeah.
But I want to say there was like a story with him where he actually got shot with one of those and didn't notice for a while.
Oh,
I could be misremembering the story, but regardless,
yeah.
very low stopping power. But
Yes.
of course, she just tried to shoot someone in front of the police while they were trying to book Jake for all of his, for repeatedly trying to get them off her trail.
Right. Yeah.
And they fire at her as she leaves, and
Yeah.
let's just say it's the way that that bullet went. It's like her dad's name was played by a man named Dallas instead of Houston,
Yeah. Yeah.
with a very gruesome effect.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, yeah, they weren't shy with some of the blood in this. Yeah, yeah, gruesomeness.
No,
Yeah.
it's yeah. So in the end, Jake gets away with his freedom, but nothing else. The woman he seemed to be developing feelings for, dead.
Mhm.
The daughter back in the hands of the rapist father.
Yeah.
Um, the conspiracy completely unreported,
Mhm.
and their scheme to buy up a bunch of land and profit and profit like nobody else.
Yeah.
Once the land was flooded with water and was actually usable,
Yep.
uh, com- went completely unchallenged. So
Yep.
hence, forget about Jake as Chinatown. The system wins.
Yep. Yeah, and yeah, so the yeah, Chinggis. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
That's very noir.
Yes, it is. But yeah, I mean, that's, and it kind of fits with the era that the movie was made in. Like in the 1970s, the movies were very cynical and nihilistic.
right? That whole coming out of Vietnam and Watergate and all that.
Yeah, yeah,
We were still a couple of ways from Jaws and Star Wars reminding people that life could be fun again.
right, yeah,
See, Ninja, like that,
yeah,
that's the thing, is like it was actually very satisfying, as depressing as the ending was.
yeah. Yeah,
Now,
and yeah, and it fit with the era too. Yeah, because the 1930s were not I that's one of those time periods I love to look at and talk about and just to see and everything. But at the same time, it was a rough period.
yeah, it's got nice aesthetics, but it's not like the 80s where it's like, okay, I could tolerate living in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think I could tolerate living in the 1930s. Yeah,
No,
it's just no.
but as far as performances go, not a bad performance in the house.
No, there wasn't. Yeah. Yeah, everyone brought their A game in this. Nicholson, Faye Dunaway, John Huston,
Yeah,
the rest of the cast. Yeah,
Houston was great because like he was able to bring this energy where you could tell, like, okay, you're friendly and nice on the surface, but there's something sinister about you.
yeah,
No,
yeah. And I,
some of that might have just been me being genre savvy.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. Me too. Well, I've actually met people like that in real life. Where I'm like, okay, yeah, you seems like a really nice guy and seem like a pretty
Mhm.
cool dude, but I don't know. There's something about you that's just not right. Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, that's neither here nor there.
yeah. Speaking of people who are quite all right, Roman Polanski, as far as non-extradited criminals go, you make a fine director.
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've seen any of his other movies.
This is definitely the first one I've seen of his.
Yeah, same for me. I haven't seen Rosemary's Baby or what was that one about the piano? That was the other one, the piano with Adrian Brody.
Mm.
Uh, he actually won the Oscar for that one.
Yeah, though he couldn't show up to accept it
Yeah, right. Yeah.
because he's living in what, Switzerland?
I believe so. Yeah, he was in France for a long time. Um, I actually stayed at a hotel. The hotel I stayed at once when I was in high school on a European vacation with my family.
Hmm.
In the hotel we were in, we stayed in the Roman Polanski suite. So, but
Some very dirty jokes are occurring to me, but I'm going to leave them to myself
yeah, yeah,
or keep them to myself.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But yeah, if you've never seen this movie before, give it a watch. It's on Paramount Plus.
you know, I think that we want people to watch this enough that I think it might make sense to like put out two copies of this, the spoiler and the non-spoiler,
Yeah, yeah,
just
I
because
will. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Yeah,
watching the way that Ninja and Changus are responding to our spoiler-tastic version of things, it's like, no, you don't understand. It's supposed to be, like it sounds dumb on paper, but it works so well.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, any last things you'd like to say?
Um, well, I did mention, I can say that it's a huge emotional whiplash to watch Barbie in the morning and this in the evening. So,
Yeah. And Chenga says, "Okay, it's supposed to be depressing. Okay, I'll give it a shot."
yeah,
Yeah,
it's worth a go. It can be
yeah, it
one of
is.
your things on your show.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And since I think Chinggis lives in L.A. or is from L.A., so he might get an appreciation for
Yeah,
seeing the city in that time period.
you might even recognize some of the landmarks
Yeah, yeah,
because this was probably the era when they wouldn't have shot it in Vancouver.
Right.
Oh my god, can you imagine this movie is so tied into like it being like the deserts, like can you imagine like, okay, we got to find a way to drain Vancouver to make it look dry enough to be LA in the 30s.
Uh, ooh,
Uh, Don't worry, says J.J. Abrams. We'll just throw up a green screen.
yes. uh, or Ryan Johnson. I don't care.
I pick on JJ because that bit where the footage they have of them where they've flown to Tunisia for the Star Wars Episode 9,
Oh yeah.
and they're on the sand, but they have put up the green screen so that they can make it look more sandier, I guess. You just wanted to go to Tunisia, admit it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You just wanted to spend the money to go to Tunisia.
The Adam Sandler technique.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I think we've covered it,
Yep.
exhausted it.
A fine suggestion, Daniel.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate it as always. Smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and ring the bell. And and Chinggis. Oh, JJ, I hope you do change. Well,
He's probably too set in his ways at this point.
yeah,
At
unfortunately.
he destroyed a lot of beloved franchises and properties, but at least he personally made a lot of money. And at the end of the day, isn't that what artistic merit is about?
Yes. Oh man.
Uh,
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, and
uh,
with that,
that was a very noir ending for this podcast.
yes, exactly.
All right. Forget it, Daniel. It's Hollywood.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night.